Hey everyone, this is the ThinkEnergy podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Siggett from Hydro Ottawa. Are you looking to better understand the fast-changing world of energy? Well, the ThinkEnergy podcast isn't your ordinary energy show. Every 2 weeks, we take you on a tour and discuss, through a communication lens, some of the coolest trends, emerging technologies, and latest innovations. So stay tuned as we explore some traditional and some quirky facets of this industry. This is the ThinkEnergy podcast. Welcome to episode 2 of the ThinkEnergy podcast. So here's today's big question. Is electric vehicle adoption on the rise? And if so, are we ready? I myself just purchased my second EV, a 2019 Hyundai Kona. So I have a vested interest in this subject. With this potential rise, utilities, municipalities, and building owners are seeing a need to take a proactive approach and future-proof their infrastructure. EV readiness is one way to do this, and an area that affects all properties, be it commercial, residential, or condominiums. In this episode of ThinkEnergy, my guest is Christopher Ralph, who leads the EV infrastructure division at Envari Energy Solutions. Christopher, thank you for joining me today. Let's start by telling our listeners who Christopher Ralph is.
No problem, Dan. First off, thank you for having me on the podcast. I've been working with Envari Energy Services now since the tail end of 2018. I've been in the renewable energy sector since 2013. I've worked for companies from Brookfield Renewable Energy in Gatineau, Quebec, to Hydro Ottawa on the utility side. I'm now with energy in the energy services sector with Envari. My education and background really focused on climate change adaptation and policy, focusing on vehicle electrification and the promotion and implementation of renewable energy. So I'm working on the electric vehicle strategy for Envari Energy Services right now.
What attracted you to the energy sector?
I've always wanted to make a difference in my community, and understanding that climate change is probably the gravest threat our species has ever faced really motivated me to dip my toes into the renewable energy sector and pursue this not just as a hobby but as a passion. I've found it to be an exceptionally fulfilling career, and it's one that I intend to carry forward in.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, so let's jump into today's topic. Are attitudes towards EVs changing? Are we nearing the tipping point where electric vehicles become cheaper than their combustion engine equivalent?
So, are we nearing a tipping point? Absolutely. Forbes recently published an article from Bloomberg NEF where within the next 18 months, conventional electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, will be cheaper than their internal combustion engine counterparts in the United States, Canada, and Europe. We're already seeing comparative pricing in the sedan and compact classes. The Hyundai Ioniq is the same price as a Jetta. The Nissan Leaf is the same price as a Camry or an Elantra. We're also seeing a tipping point in terms of the way people approach EVs. You can't go anywhere today, to any upscale restaurant, to any upscale hotel, or to any large consumer site without seeing electric vehicle parking or electric vehicle charging. And this is because electric vehicle consumers are becoming a major consumer segment in the marketplace and a major market demographic. In Canada, we just surpassed, at the end of 2018, over 100,000 electric vehicles on the road. There's 27 or 28,000 in Ontario and another 55 or 60,000 in Quebec, of which Ottawa-Gatineau sits right at the heart of that region. These numbers are only going to increase with or without federal or provincial subsidies. These cars are simply effective and cheap, and people are making the decision to move into an electric vehicle.
Chris, over 75% of EV charging is happening at home. What about EV charging for condos, commercial centers, apartments? Is our infrastructure, our city infrastructure, ready for this?
So I'll break that down into two components. About 3 years ago, over 80% of charging was occurring in the home. And right now, the Flow network is estimating that it's only about 65% of charging that's occurring at the home.
Okay.
As the number of people who purchase EVs and drive EVs in fleets increases, and it's increasing about 100% every year, we're going to see new charging locations and we're going to see new charging styles. People are going to want to charge overnight. People who are concerned about their electricity bill may charge between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. And we're also going to see the way fast charging will change and evolve on highway networks as more people begin to road trip in EVs. So is our infrastructure prepared in Ontario and Quebec? The answer really depends on what type of charger you are as a person. Are you doing mostly highway commuting? If so, yes, the infrastructure is very much ready. I just returned from Quebec City to Ottawa last weekend.
You used your EV to go to Quebec?
I did.
Quebec City, did you?
I drove a 2019 Hyundai Ioniq from Ottawa's East End to Sainte-Foy, Quebec in about 4.5 hours, stopping every hour and a half to charge up. There's fast chargers everywhere along the way.
That's very cool. I've done my first drive, actually. I've only gone to Montreal this weekend for the first time. Like that anxiety, I've actually flushed it out now because I've gone 2 hours.
Yeah, and there's enough fast charging in this region of Canada to make sure that if you're a highway charger, you're good. Where we're seeing a shortfall now is in condo charging, the ability to charge up your vehicle in a pre-existing multi-unit residential building, like a condo or an apartment, and in shopping centers. A lot of shopping centers have adequate EV parking. They do not have adequate EV charging. And what that means is if you go in and you shop for an hour and a half and you're on a power shared network, which means you have 4 chargers sharing the same circuit, or you're on a charger with dual nozzles that'll lower your actual consumption to save on electricity for the building, you're not actually deriving enough of a charge in your vehicle to make any substantive difference to your range anxiety. This means that home charging and work charging are now going to carry the bulk of the EV charging being performed for most EV drivers, and that infrastructure is sorely lacking.
Okay. Well, you're touching on commercial institutions, municipalities, and the average EV guy or gal. That basically means that there are a lot of different target audiences here. How do you communicate this information or these options to all these different audiences?
Well, there's one overriding factor here, and that is the principal audience to any EV charging conversation has to be EV owners. EV owners need to understand what they want, and they need to understand the charging options that are available on the market to them, so they can effectively communicate that to their workplaces or to their homeowners associations or to their condo boards or to the places where they do their shopping. Understanding that EV charging is first and foremost a customer service and is a service industry, it makes sense to put the EV owner in the center of everything that we do. We want to provide an effective charging solution that makes sense to a property owner or to a condo board or to a landlord who owns an apartment building. And I want to make sure that it is both reasonable and cost effective and it can fit within their existing electrical infrastructure. But I also want to make it a good customer experience, and I want to ensure that the EV user at the end of the day is satisfied and is alleviating their range anxiety, understanding that they can get a full charge when they come home at night.
Okay. Well, as a business, what is Envari's, I've got 2 questions here. What is Envari's unique value proposition, selling proposition if you want, and what makes Envari's approach different than other offerings on the market?
Sure. So Envari's value proposition is that we're backed up by the utility. We're an affiliate company of Hydro Ottawa, which is the local distribution company in Ottawa and the city of Castleman. We bring a lot of expertise to the electric vehicle market. When we talk about right-sizing transformers, ensuring that there's adequate electrical capacity, when we start talking about things like power sharing technology and actually engineering a solution that goes into place, we have some of the best electrical engineers in the region, and we bring over 100 years of experience to the table in getting those solutions up. What separates us from other groups as well is really our relationship with the charger manufacturers and charger providers. We have really deep relationships, and we have affiliate protocols in place with groups like ChargePoint and Flow, ThinkEnergy based in Quebec, where we can put and deploy the best charger solutions available in the North American market into any location in this region at a very competitive and affordable price. And being backed up by the utility, it means we also understand the rate structure. It means we understand how to monetize and capitalize on that rate structure to ensure that we're not spiking your demand, or that at the end of the month you're not going to be hit with a massive utility bill just because you put in a few electric vehicle chargers.
Cool, thanks. Here's my last question, I promise. Christopher, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night is knowing that in Ontario and Quebec, about a quarter of our total greenhouse gas emissions come from vehicles, and they're completely avoidable. Volvo is putting out new electric semi-trucks. Rivian is coming out with what they hope will displace the Ford F-150 and the Chevy Silverado and all those other light-duty pickup trucks. There's enough electric vehicle sedans on the road and available to purchase right now that there's really no reason we should be considering a gas-powered car anymore. What keeps me up at night is whether or not the adoption of electric vehicles is going to be enough for Canada and the world to hit its Paris targets in transportation greenhouse gas emission reduction, or whether or not we're going to miss those targets and potentially do irreversible damage to our economy and to our ecosystem.
Christopher, thank you for joining us today. If someone wanted to reach out to you, how could they connect?
I would always recommend LinkedIn as being the first and last option to connect with anybody in the EV industry. You can find me on LinkedIn at Christopher Ralph under the Envari Energy Services Group. I'm always looking to connect with EV enthusiasts or people looking to chat about electric vehicles.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of ThinkEnergy. If so, please head on over to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. Also, be sure to tell your friends and colleagues about us. It's very much appreciated. We'd love to hear from you, so check us out on hydroottawa.com. Thank you for listening.